All right. In the last week's session, we have seen how to work with the workbooks, worksheets. It's more of a navigation from one page to another page. Sometimes it may be a requirement like you want to navigate from one workbook to another workbook. So last week's session clearly demonstrated how we can easily navigate. So having said that, like the upcoming topics, which are going to be conditional structures, or you talk about loops, by combination of this, we can really build the robust application for your requirement. All right. So the today topic is VBA message box. Let's see what is this VBA message box, and we have something called VBA input box. Okay. So in order to say what is exactly the message box, I'll like to open a simple notepad for that matter. I'll open it, I'll close it without saying. So I'll be getting something called, okay, I just opened it again. I type something, I just closed it. Immediately I'll get some dialog box here asking like, do you want to save the changes to this untitled? Because I have not saved anything. I've written something in the notepad, but I didn't save it. So it is asking me a polite question. Do you want to save it? The one which you are able to see right now on the screen, do you want to save or whatever the title might be? Okay, it's being I opened a notepad, it's saying notepad. If you want to create this kind of structure or the box, okay, which is called as a message box, which is trying to give you a message to the end user, what you want to do. You want to really save it, or you don't want to save it, or you want to cancel it. So it often happens whenever you're trying to create automations, you want to create this kind of a dialog boxes for your projects so that we can seek the information from the user. Sometimes you want to ask the user acceptance. Sometimes you want to give the information to the user. Maybe at the end of the project, you want to say the macro is completed. You want to provide there is a OK button. Okay, sometimes you want to say, do you want to run the macro? Yes, no option. So you want to give multiple options there to the end user so that he can take the action based on the requirement. So in order to create this message box, if I remember correctly in C++, Java, if I want to create this kind of a dialog box, what you see here, I need to write some hundreds of lines of code in order to design this. But thanks to Microsoft, because this dialog box is already defined, created by the Microsoft. The only thing is we need to start utilizing it. So how to utilize it? Let's see. As I always keep saying, like whenever I want to work with any function or any formula, the basic thing I need to remember only few things. Like for example, if I want to work with VLOOKUP, even if I don't know the VLOOKUP, if I start understanding the parameters, that is the only secret of mastering any formulas in Excel. Okay, so when I just say tab, what I can see here, I don't remember actually what are the parameters required, but it's clearly telling me you need to give the lookup value. Okay, let me give the lookup value. Once I say comma, it's asking me, can you give the table array? Okay, let me say my table array is A:A, for example. Then it's asking me what is your column index, in which column you want to search for. I said 2. Then I want to say some false or true option at the end. That means these are the 4 parameters which I have to satisfy so that I can make my VLOOKUP work. Even if you are missing one parameter, your VLOOKUP will fail. So in the same way, when I want to create my message box in the VBA, okay, it is a function. It is a function which is already created for you. The only thing is we need to provide the necessary parameters in order to make the dialog box look beautiful and also as per your requirement. So let's see how it works actually. So if I want to create a message box, the very first thing as usual, I just open some sub because that is how I start the macro. Then I will give you something called message underscore box underscore example one. Maybe that's my name of the macro. That's it. It could be anything, as we all know. So if you want to create the message box, the very first thing we need to use, it's not MESSAGE. That's the English word, right? So the message box is not uh, the same way the way I have written. Actually, it is called as MSG box. Okay, MSG box. If you want to see, you can always use Control Spacebar to invoke the IntelliSense. MSG box. I can see here it's a function. So now from here, I don't know what are the parameters to be given. Not to worry, as I said always, whenever you just use the space, it will tell you the complete story about this function. That means what kind of information you want to provide on the message box, how the buttons you want to place, how you want the message box to look like. Let me say, I want to say this is my first MSG box. That's it. That is the first parameter I've given. But before writing, you need to understand why we have given this message. Because if you see in the message box, the first parameter saying prompt, that means what kind of prompt you want to give to the end user. Is it you want to say, do you want to save the changes, or you want to run the macro? You want to give a information like what prompt you want to give, like the macro is completed. Whatever the information you want to provide, that is how you are going to provide as a first parameter. We have other parameters as well, but I want to understand the first parameter first in order to see this. Now I'm just using F8 key, or you can use any button to run it. I'm just saying this. Now I got my very first dialog box. That is, this is my first message box. Now, I always fascinated with the default things first. Default things in the sense how it looks by default, so that I can start enhancing it. I can see the message box is basically showing a title called Microsoft Excel because it's a Microsoft product. This is my first message box. It is not default. It is given by me. That's my own user information which I've given. Tomorrow it could be anything. Okay, that is at a prompt. I just provided prompt. I'm not even told that I want a button called OK, but that's a default one. Okay, Microsoft Excel is the default title. OK is the default title. OK is the default button. This is my first message box. That is my own message, and this is a close button. Here also we can say OK. And we all know, like whenever we are trying to open any application, without responding to message box, you cannot click anywhere. Even if you're clicking, you're trying to close your workbook, or you are trying to save, it will not happen anything, because you need to respond to this message box. It is asking you something, or it's giving you some information. You say okay. Before saying okay, I want to see what all I can do with this. The very first thing I want to see, can I add buttons here? Because it's most of the time, like you just saw with an example with a notepad, right? When I'm trying to close after writing some information or feeding some information, when I'm trying to close the notepad, it was asking me, do you want to save the changes? Yes, no, cancel, whatever the buttons. Okay, sometimes you get this kind of message box also about retrieve. Okay, you want to retrieve some information. So these kind of buttons you can easily place on your message box. Okay, but the very first option available is a prompt. So that is what you provided. Let's see what are the other things we can provide. I want to change the title. I want to change the buttons here. I also want to provide some icon here. Icon in the sense, whenever I'm giving information, I want to give some kind of information related icon, so that the user can easily understand whenever something is going wrong, like some danger. Okay, sometimes you are asking a question, do you want to run the macro? That's a question, right? So you want to put some icon on the message box based on the requirement of message, but we'll try to explore all, but let's see where we can really fit in. Okay, so that's the first parameter you have given. Let me see what is the second option I can give. So for that, how do I proceed is just use a comma, because that's what your message box is saying. Let me go here once again, MSG box. When I say space, the first one it is saying prompt. So let me write here, the first parameter is prompt, so that you can understand. First one is prompt, and the next one is prompt, and the next one is we have a buttons. And what is the next one? There's no need to remember, always just put the space bar, you can understand. Then after that, you can provide something called icon, or you can say image maybe. Then after that, you want to give a title. So these are the four parameters what you have for the message box. The thing is, I was just telling you, like for the VLOOKUP, even if you don't satisfy one parameter, the VLOOKUP will fail. But in case of these functions are designed in such a way, even if you are not providing all the parameters, because I'm not interested to give additional buttons, I'm not interested to change the title. So I'm okay with one particular information, that is just giving a prompt. So still it is working, right? Without giving other parameters also it's working. But I'm not happy. I want to see how to give a buttons. Let's see. Once you say comma, it's asking you what kind of buttons you want to place. So for everything, like it started with a VB. Okay, it's a VB collection. So once you say VB, you say yes, no, we have a cancel. So before we put all these buttons, I want to understand what are the other buttons available. There is a combination called OK and cancel. There is OK only. Do I need to use a OK only? No, because by default OK is anyway coming on the message box, because there should be one button at any cost on the dialog box, because without clicking on that you cannot come out of that message box. So OK is a by default one. OK cancel you can use. You can also use VB yes no cancel. Let me see all three buttons at once. Okay, VB yes no cancel. It is not written, it's already predefined one. Now let me run this. Now you can see your dialog was little bit enhanced with the three buttons here. We have a Microsoft Excel still, that same title, boring title. We want to change it according to my project. This is my first message box. That's my user defined information. And the first button is highlighted because even you can click that button with the space bar. There's no need to use the mouse. You can use a no button. You can use a cancel button. So these are the three options available, and nothing will happen right now if I click on yes or no cancel, because there's no coding for it. Okay, so once I say no, I came out. Once you say yes also will come out. Once you say cancel also will come out, because there's no code written behind the scenes. The next parameter, let's see what are the other things. If I want to change quickly from VB yes no to something else, let's see if I can change it. I said I don't know how to write, so I simply use control spacebar. VB, I say yes no, yes no cancel you have seen. So let's say VB yes no, that means you wanted only two buttons to be appeared, not three buttons. Okay is the default. You can have yes no, you can also have yes no cancel. So you can change according to your requirement. Now in order to give the icon, the icon which I was telling, like if when you're giving some information to the user, you want to give some kind of emoji there. Okay, kind of a emotion you want to show there. So for that you need to use a plus symbol, because this buttons and as well as icons go side by side, so we need to use a plus operator. There's only one thing we need to remember, because we cannot use a comma here. We have to use, if you use comma, it's directly jumping to title. So here I don't want to give the title, rather I want to give a icon. So let's see what are the different icons available. Once I say plus, I'm getting again four options. One is VB critical. Let me write here so that you can remember what are the different buttons you can give, icons you can use. The icon, let me write here itself. We can use question, we can use exclamation, and what else we have question, we have exclamation, we have warning something. Let me see what all we have. We have plus, VB critical. Critical is nothing but a warning. We have VB question, we have VB information, VB exclamation. We'll try to see all those four. First, let me go with the exclamation. Exclamation symbol, how it looks like. Let's see on the directly in action. So for that, let me just run this. This is how your exclamation symbol looks like. By default, if you observe, there is no icon mentioned on the dialog box, but as per my business requirement, I want to give some icon there based on the kind of work I'm doing. So it's completely optional. At the same time, you want to give more information. So this is an icon symbol which you can show for the exclamation. So let's see how the warning looks like. This is one which you have seen. Let me put it here. The first one we have learned, and exclamation, and then we have the next one. Once you say plus, there's no need to worry. If you don't get anything, you can always use control spacebar to invoke your things, right? VB question. So let me see what is a VB question next. This is a VB question, second one. When I run this, obviously you are going to find an icon with a question symbol. That's it. That is question symbol. You are asking some question to the user. Do you want to save it? Yes or no? Cancel. You are asking a question. So you are also trying to make user understand what you mean. Okay, not just with the message, but also with the icon. So this style of creating, you can also do that with a question. So let me see what is the next one. There are only 4 options available. You can't expect more than this, because either you are trying to show exclamation symbol, either you are going to show something called you are going to ask a question, or you are going to show something called critical. Okay, let me see what is critical here. Critical is something like you already got the beep sound probably. Whenever you run this kind of icon, you'll be getting a beep sound. That means it's giving a warning. Don't run this, don't delete this. You want to give some kind of warnings to the end user for not to perform any kind of a thing on this particular macro. So this is, you can see a circle with a cross symbol. Okay, that is your critical. So let me copy this also and put it here for your information. And the next one, we have VB exclamation, question, and critical. What's the fourth one? We have VB. You can search from here, exclamation, VB information. Yeah, VB information we haven't seen. So let me copy this. This is just giving an information to the end user that, yeah, you can see this is an information symbol that is looks like a circle with I. Okay, information, exclamation, critical, and question. So these are the 4 icons which you can show. It is not really mandatory. It is not really mandatory to have all these things, but just to improvise version of your message box, you can say written spelling wrong. VB explanation. That's it. Yeah. Uh, Anytime when you're not happy with what you have, you can always change it. Like I'm changing to VB S no cancel, S no cancel. You can also use tab to activate these buttons here. As we know, that's a simple shortcut in Excel. It's not related to VBA. This is my first message box. You can put something, uh, you can change the title anytime from here, double quotes, with, because always string is given double quotes. Do you want to save something? You're asking a question. So the appropriate icon should be not exclamation, rather it should be question, right? So this is how you are going to change the way you want. Okay, now I'm asking a question to the user. Do you want to save it? Really? Yes, no, cancel. If the user is clicking on yes, you want to really save the workbook or the macro, or you want to perform something. When the user says no, you don't want to save it. When somebody says clicking on cancel, you don't want to perform any action. Rather, you want to stay on the same page. So these are the different buttons you can place, different icons you can place. Anytime you can change the middle texture, what you provided, nothing but called as a prompt. At the top, you can still see there is a Microsoft Excel, which I'm not liking it. I want to have my own kind of a title because it's my project, my wish. I want to have my own title there. So how do we change that? So again, I don't know where to write. Don't worry, just use a comma. It will tell you politely, this is the place where you can write the title. So let me say my title, something I'm writing just for fun. You can change as per your requirement. Once you run it, you can see my title as a title, it has been changed. All right, so let me recap this message box. Later, we also discuss where we can really use it. Message box has 4 parameters. The first one you have seen, what is the prompt? Nothing but what message you want to give to the user. Next one is button. What are the different buttons you want to use? Okay, VB yes no, VB yes no cancel, VB about retrieve, or you want to say okay only, okay only. There is no need to mention. By default is okay only. And icon, what you want to use? VB exclamation, VB question, VB critical, VB information. Title is a title. Again, it's a user defined. What you want to give, it's our wish. There's nothing like defaulting. You can change anything. My title, or else my new title, let's say. And what were the stuff you write within the double quotes? It's nothing but you are want to present on your message box. Always, whenever you see in double quotes, it is a message which you want to give as is. So these are the 3 things what we can do with the message box. And exactly where I can use this one actually, because it looks quite interesting, very beautiful dialog box, but where I can use this. Let's assume you have done your project and you ask me to click on the button because I'm an end user, I don't know macros. You completed your project, you hand over it to me, and you ask me to run this macro every time. I'm running it, but when the macro is completed, I don't have any kind of instruction saying that the job is completed or it's still running. I am not aware. So why don't you keep a message box at the end of your macro saying that the job is completed, so that the end user can be intimated saying that, okay, the job is completed, I can close the Excel. So that is one way. Second is you can also use, for example, the user is just about to click on the button. Let's say he clicked on the button. You want to give a chance to him. Do you really want to run this macro? Yes, no. If he says no, you want to stop the macro. If he says yes, you want to continue running the macro. So you can just provide the way you want. It's completely message box is really, really useful. I always use at the end of my code, because once the macro is completed, a dialog box will be displayed for the user saying that the macro is completed. You can just validate your data, or you can close the Excel, or just open another workbook. I can give a lot of instruction through the help of a prompt. All right. As we have seen, the message box is basically trying to provide, seeking information from the end user, just trying to provide the information to the user. Do you want to save it? Do you want to cancel it? Do you want to, what you want to do at the end of your macro, you want to provide some information. So input box is little different from this. Input box always takes information from the user. So let me see how the syntax goes here. The way I started MSG box, here the input box need to be spelled out like input box completely. Once you say space, it has few parameters and everything seems to be optional, because if I look at my Excel formulas, wherever I find open and closing brackets like this, help file, there is an open and closing bracket. Whenever I find this kind of options, that means these are all not mandatory. The first one, prompt is not shown in the bracket, that means it is mandatory, and rest on the things are not mandatory. So let me say enter your DOB. That's my information which I'm asking the end user when I'm running it. This is how I'm going to see. So the default title can be changed. And please do remember, we cannot change anything about the buttons, unlike the message boxes, because this is an input box. So in the input box, once you enter the user information, I entered my date of birth, maybe wrong, so I can say cancel. Okay, either I can say okay. So if I think I've written my date of birth incorrect, so I can say cancel, or if I written correctly later, I can say okay. So you can't expect more than this. And these are the only two buttons available. Don't compare with the message box. That's it. So the first one is prompt, enter your date of birth. Let me see what you can do. When I say comma, I have something called title. So title is nothing but this is my title. That's just for fun. So you can give any title there based on the requirement. If you're talking about a date of birth, you try to give a company name or your project name, process name. If you like your boss name. So obviously we are just going to give some nice titles based on your project. So that's how it works. And here I have no clue actually how to enter my date of birth. Is it DD, then MM, then YY, or I don't know if I need to change, give my date of birth as starting as year, as month, then day. I don't know. I have no clue here. So either you can mention within the prompt itself as an example, you can provide here itself like month, year, day, something like that. If you provide here itself, the user will understand, okay, I have to provide the date of birth like this. Either you can provide here itself, or you can provide at you can provide here itself, or else you can provide in the default section, in the sense here itself we want to give as a mock-up how the date of birth should look like. So that means once I go for the third option, what it is telling me, I don't want to remember anything because everything it is beautifully shown. When I remove the comma, the title, it went to title. That means I'm still in the title position. When I say comma, it's trying to show me the default position. Default in the sense, what a default information you want to provide in that text box. Very long text box we have in the input box, that one. So let me say DD, MM, YY. That's my style of asking the user date of birth. Maybe that is the business requirement. Okay, that is a business requirement, or else that's how you want to take the information from the user. Always DD, MM, YY. Depends upon the region as well, of course, sometimes. So when I run this, I have a double prompt here. So let me remove. Yeah, just so let me run this. Now you can see there is a DD MM YY. So you can over now I have a clear view. What should I give information here? DD, okay, let me give DD, then month, okay, let me say month, then year, I want to provide 2020 something. Okay, this is how the user can easily understand and relate to your input box. So this is an input box and this is your message box. There's a lot of difference between these two functions actually. One is taking permission from you, or also sometimes giving information to you what you want to do with this now. And please do remember, you cannot escape without giving response to this guy, because even if you are trying to click anywhere, it will not allow you. Okay, you will be hearing only a beep sound, nothing else. You have to respond to this, either closing like this, either closing like this, either closing like this, either closing this. You have to respond to this guy. Without that, you cannot do any other operations. So that's the message box. And the input box is basically taking the information from the user. I have taken the date of birth here for whatever the reason. Once the let's assume in the E column we have 1,000 employees date of births, and in the B column we have its their credit balance or debit balance. And once the user enters his date of joining, once I say okay, you want to search in the A column wherever the user is there. Beside that, whatever the credit balance is there, you want to tell the end user or the customer or anyone for that matter, this is your balance available in your saving account, checking account, whatever. So it's more of taking information, and based on that you are doing some kind of operation behind the scenes. That's about the input box, which is very, very important. uh, Again, depends upon the project. All right, so let's start begin with a new topic called variables. Variables is not specific to VBA or any programming language. In every programming language we do require variables. And so as I said, in every programming language, we require variables. And to start with, what is a variable actually? Because so far, whatever the topics I learned, I didn't see real importance of this particular topic or related to it, because I know worksheet, I know sheet, I know workbook, I know range, I know coloring the sheets. I just know I learned how to use the message boxes, input boxes, but how this topic is relevant to this and how what kind of a role it is going to play in my journey of automation, right? So variable is nothing but just imagine like a temporary box in which you put some information, and whenever you need, you can retrieve it. So let me write it here so that you can have a recap. What is variable? It's a simply is a container which stores. All right, it's a container which stores a piece of information. Just imagine like this, like you have a laptop bag, you kept the laptop inside and you just keep it aside. Whenever you want, you're just unzipping your laptop bag and you're pulling out your laptop, and you're keeping back you'll keep it back whenever you doesn't require it. So the laptop bag is working like a container for your laptop. So the same way, in every programming language, we have something called a variable concept. It's like a container which you can't see it because it stores in the computer memory. Literally, we cannot see actually how it looks like, but we can feel it, we can make use of it, and we can start making your automations into dynamic by using these variables. So it is a container which stores a piece of information. Now the question is what kind of information? Because when I talk about a credit card number, it is a number, right? When I talk about a customer name, it is a text. When I talk about date of birth, date of joining, okay, whatever, these are date formats. So here comes the picture of understanding the different kind of a data type. Okay, whenever you see any text, normally in plain English, we'll say it's a text information, right? When I'm trying to store your name in my phone book, I'll say this is a text information. So whenever I'm storing your phone number, I'll say this is a number. When I'm storing your date of birth, I'll say this is a date. So that's how you general language will use it. But when it comes to a programming number, let's see how the number called as actually. Your number is called as integers. Maybe in other programming language, it's called as int. Okay, especially in VBA, it is called as integers. Okay, whenever you see a number, it is called as integer. Now let's start using any number as integers. All right. So whenever you see a text information is your company name, your name, or anyone's name, or that's called as string. So from now on, our dialog should be whenever you see a number, it is called as an integer. Whenever you see something called text, it is a string. And what is the date is called? Date is called as date only. There's no different terminology for this. Date is date only. So before we actually jump into this variable concept, we need to understand how these words are being used. When I see phone number, when I see account number, when I see order number, when I see any product number, it is called as a number. When I see a company name, a product name, a customer name, your name, my name, okay, it is called as a text. Date of birth, order date, okay, shipping date, these are all, it's a date format only. You know how the date format looks like. It's again depends upon the requirement. Shall I use a DDMMYY? Shall I use a YYDDMMY? It depends upon the region which in you're working, how the date should be called as. Now here, if I want to start using the variables, as I keep saying, like it's a container where I'm going to store the information. So you need to create that container first. If you want to create that container so that you can store some information, that we need to follow one syntax. If you remember the syntax, that's it. Till whenever you start any automation, whether simplest to complex, we need to write this statement. So the very first thing we are going to see how to declare a variable. Okay, let me write it here, how to declare a variable. Now, having understood what is a variable, which is a container which stores a piece of information, now we need to see how to declare a variable. Let's see. I need to use a keyword called dim. How do I know it's a dim is a keyword? Because you're going to see it is going to convert into a blue color, obviously. Dim. Then we need to provide the variable name as is a keyword here. Then we need to use the data type. Okay, don't worry if you're not understanding this line. I'll break it down into simple words to make you understand. This is a syntax how it looks like. Let me write it here. Okay, this is a syntax. Not really, I've not written anything. It's a syntax. How the syntax looks like. We'll start with always whenever you want to declare a variable, when you want to create a variable, you will start with dim, then we'll use a variable name, then use a keyword called as, then we'll create a data type. Now, let me break it down this. First, I was saying dim. So what is dim? Let's see. Dim is called as a dimension. Okay, dim is called as a dimension. And there's no need to tell you what is a variable name. It's simply name of your variable. And whatever the rules we have for the variables, we all know, like we cannot use the spaces in between, we cannot use starting as a number, we cannot use the special characters, and whenever you want to give a spaces, always use underscore. We've just learned all these rules which are followed for even you're giving a module names. For your macro name, for a variable name is also same. The same golden rules to be followed. Don't use spaces. If you want spaces, try to use underscore. Don't start your variable name, macro name, or your module name with the number or the special characters. Okay, so it can go up to 256 characters, but nobody will use it. Try to make it short and sweet so that anybody can easily understand it. So that's a variable name. Then something I have here, AS, which stands for as, is called as a keyword. It's a keyword. Then data type. Okay, data type. What type of info you want to store? That's it. The four words which I've mentioned here as the first line, if you see, this is the syntax. This is the syntax here. This is the syntax. Difference, that syntax, I just break it down. Dim stands for dimension. Variable name stands for what variable you want to give. Okay, what the name you want to give. It's completely your wish, my wish. And as is a keyword, and data type is a what data type you want to store the information. Whether you are trying to store information which is as a number data type, okay, whether you want to store the information which is a string data type, whether you want to store information which is as a data type. I don't know. If it is a customer name, I would like to store as a text information. If it is an account number, I would like to store as a number format. If it is some date format, definitely I want to store as a date format. So you need to be very clear while declaring a variable what kind of data you want to store. So let me begin with the first line of the declaration of variable. Dim, let me say variable example1 so that you can easily understand what I mean. All right. So variable. So how to declare the variable? The very first keyword I need to remember is dim. Dim is a starting word or the keyword to be used. So is it really changes into blue color so that I can confidently say it's a keyword? So let me start using dim. It's still in black because I'm not completed my sentence. Obviously, as long as you don't complete the sentence, it will not change its colors. Whether you're writing uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter, because only after completion of your line, it will show the true colors and true style of its text. So dim, now I need to use a variable. So let me say simple. I'll keep it as simple. I'm saying a. Then I need to use the next keyword as. Okay. Now once you say space, here comes the real picture. I said a. Okay. A is a variable name. What kind of data you want to store in that information? Is it a number information you want to store as a string information? Whether you want to store as a date information? Here is a critical thinking we need to use, because this is what where people will really get confused. I declared a variable called a. I declared a variable called a. So I need to use. I said simply a is a variable which is a type of what type of information you want to store. Currently, I don't know what kind of data types available. So let me start learning that first. Okay. I've I've mentioned very clearly in my notes what kind of data types available, what is the size of it, how much data you can store into that, everything. But let me start mentioning here. Okay, let me say dim a as I want to say byte. Now, what is a byte here? Okay, you can see here dim blue color, as is a blue color, byte is a blue color. So only A or my name, let's take as my name, because I don't want A is always a variable name. No, it could be my name as also a variable. So anything can be a variable. You need to just follow the rules of those golden rules, like no space, no characters, this, that. All right. So dim Monty is a byte. Now I want to understand Monty is a variable. Monty is a container where you want to store a information of byte data type. Now again a confusion here. Byte data type. What is a byte data? First of all, what kind of information it can store? Byte is a data type which can store integers of 255 characters. Okay. So let me use a comment here. Yeah. So dim Monty as a byte. Byte is a integer data type where it can store only numbers and up to 255 characters. So let's try to remember for now. Byte is a data type which can store the information up to 255 characters. So Monty is a container now I created which has a capacity of storing up to 255 characters. Okay, so that's the first data type what you have seen. Let's go for the second one. Let me keep A and B so that you can easily understand. I'm saying A, B here. Now here, the next one is I want to use a next data type called as integer. That means I want to store only integer data type here. I'll write this information later. Let me just finish off all the data types available. Dim A as a byte, dim B as an integer. Now I want to go for the next style, dim C as string. Okay, there are so many data types. I'll completely try to list down. Later, I'll tell you what is the most important. I've completed 350 plus projects, but I never used all the data types because it should be your requirement. It should be your requirement. Then only you can start using. Because when I want to store some anything related to account number, order ID, this, that, I always use the integer. Whenever I want to store some company information or any comment section or anything related to text, I always use this one. Okay, whenever I want to go for date related information, if I want to store, I'll create a date data type. Okay, then whenever I want to store something as any number, okay, with some decimals, then I'll be using a single. Okay. If I want to use any information with multiple decimals, then I'll be using double. Okay, especially the single and double has been used in a finance world because they want to show the number as is. They doesn't want round figure. For example, in case of an integer, what happens is, I'll show you the in action, but for just to understand, if I say 100.51, integer will understand this as 101. The result would be 101. But whereas in the double or single, what happens is it will try to show you exactly the complete number. That is what you want to show the information like this. If you want to show the information with a complete decimals, you are going to use single or double. We'll see the sizes now. And integer always round figure. So it's up to you. When you want something to be uh, round figure, then go for this integer data type. All right. So we have the first one, byte, integer, string, date, single, double. Let me go for the next one, dim as long. Long is really long. When I start talking about the sizes, then you will understand. But for now, just imagine there is a long data type which can store huge amount of data. That's it for now. Dim, then let's see H as something called, we have, what is that, variant? Yeah, we have a variant. So these are the different data types what we have, which you can start using in your uh, projects, where you can make things really, really dynamic. So let me just open my PDF material, which I'm going to provide, where I mentioned the complete sizes of each data type. And it's for anyone, it's not so easy to remember. So no need to remember the size of exact size of any data type. Nobody will ask you that question, but it's better to have at least a minimum idea of what exactly the byte can store. Or is it this workbook? No, just give me a minute. Excel VBA. These are our, sorry, PDF. We have fifth one. Yeah. All right. So we have something called byte data type. It's very, very clearly explained in my notes. The way I'm speaking, I've written the complete information here. Byte always the range of information it can store is, let me put it here, that is 0 to 255 characters it can store. Now the question is why we are talking about a size here. Okay, if I want to store some information which is of 1 million, I cannot use a byte data type there. I have to use some integer. Maybe I need to use a long. So based on your requirement, start using the data types here. The reason is, if you are not using variables, what happens is it will allocate for each and piece of information a very, very, very huge space into the computer memory, by which most of the macros run slowly. That's the reason. That is the only reason why certain macros runs very slowly, because they have not designed and developed by using the variables. If you use variables, you are straight away telling to the computer, I want to only utilize this much of memory from your system. By using a byte, you are telling to the computer very politely that I want to use only 0 to 255 characters only, not more than that. In the same way, we have an integer. Let's see what is the size of integer. It starts with something 32,000 and 767. So there's no need to remember actually, but just to have an idea how much it can store. I cannot go beyond this 32,767 of size. That is how the size of your integer is going to be. Let's see what is the size of your string. String, definitely 1 to approximately 65,000 65,000 to 400 of data it can store. That is your string information. All right, so that is a string. If you talk about a date, date can store from ranging from January 1st, that is 100, to December 31st, 999. You can see, just imagine how much date you can store. That's it. This is the date information, size of your date. And the next one is we have single. Let's say single and double is quite interesting actually. Single is stores, this is the size. I can't even pronounce it. What is the number of the size of this data? So no need to remember as such, but whenever you want something, a number which is of decimal, always go for single. So the next one is double. What the double is saying here, double is really double. You can see from positive to negative, this much of size, it can have the capacity of storing the information. So you can see from negative to positive. Okay, next we have something called long. Long is really, really long, which can store the information up to this information. You can never cross this kind of size, but we have, yeah, let me go for this long. We'll see in action by practically using these variables and seeing really what this size is really matters or not. We can see practically. That is a long one. Variant is my favorite. I'll tell you why. It can store any information. Yeah. That's it, guys. So we have these different data types. You need to first understand how to declare a variable. That is, what is the statement I need to use? Dim is a keyword, which is called as the dimension, then variable name, it's your wish, as is a keyword, then what is the data type? Data type, I don't know which data type it used. I have to read my data first. I need to understand it. What is my business requirement? What kind of data I want to store in my variable? Once you have this analysis, then only we can start declaring these variables. So we have seen the different sizes here. Just try to have an idea what are these different sizes. Nobody will ask you what is the size of single. It's very not really possible to spell out this complete big size number, but try to remember this typical byte 0 to 255. Integer can store up to 32,768 numbers, and string, it goes from 1 to 65,400 characters. So you'll not have such big company name or your name, my name, or customer name, or employee name. 65,400 characters you can store. Single, you have seen that with a decimals. Double with a double decimals. Long is very long. Actually, we can store a lot of information. Okay, and variant is can store any kind of data, whether it is a number, whether it is a string, whether it's a date, whether it is an image, whether it's a music file, whatever. It doesn't know what you're storing. It will simply accept whatever you're trying to store the information in a variant data type. Now let me give the right example here to understand better why I'm learning this concept actually and why I need to learn this. Let's assume I've taken hired some auditorium to conduct some session. Let's assume for 1,000 people, but only 10 people turned up, because I know only 10 people will turn up, but still I've ordered or hired a 1,000 people capacity of room of auditorium. Just imagine how much resources I'm wasting. It's a power, water, whatever, like everything is wasted, right? Only for 10 people a small room would have been sufficient, but I've hired 1,000 capacity of auditorium. That means the real consumption is only 10 people, but you are wasting that much of resources. So now try not convert your computer memory. Now you want to store your age, which is only 2 digits. You cannot cross 100 3 digits, right? You cannot cross your age 3 digits. Let's assume 2 digits. uh, it's not assumes, it's a 2 digits, right? So whenever you're talking about age which is a 2 digit, why you want to use a longer data type which can store long information? Why you want to use integer which can start with 1 to 65,000 rows? Whenever you talk about age, why don't you use a data type called byte? That means you will not cross your age 255, you'll not cross your age by 100 or something. So always try to use a data type which can really fit in. So my example, auditorium, that's the best example. That means you have a computer memory so much, and you don't want to use the complete memory. You want to use only that much memory which is really needed, sufficient. By doing so, what happens is when you're running the macros, you'll never see your macro is getting into not responding mode. I don't know if you might have seen when you're running a macros, you'll see sometimes the not responding mode, because it is trying to kill the memory of your computer memory, by which what happens is doesn't know what to do and it goes into a sleeping mode. So in order to save this kind of workbooks and to make your macros much work faster, we need to always use variables. And only use that much of space which is really needed, not the entire region, not the entire region. Okay, so that's how the data type plays a very important role. We need to use what data type is required. And from today onwards, we'll keep using these data types, declaring variables. We'll keep using, without that, I cannot do any more example from next upcoming topic. So that's how this topic starts for the variables. We'll see in action in a couple of minutes. But before that, let me take any questions if you have. All right, so let's see the very first example on how to use the byte data type. And in action, we can see what kind of date it can store. So sub, I'm saying byte example. Okay, byte as an example, which will show you how this byte data type can be really consumed in your projects. So if I say, how do I declare? Simply, I'll need to start with the dim. I'm saying a as byte. That's it. Very simple. We have declared the variable now. Now I want to start using it. So whenever you declare a variable, we need to assign this variable some value. Okay, we need to assign some value to it. So you said byte, but what kind of data you want to store there? That is, let's assume I want to store an age. So you want to say we need to use that variable as the left side, that's let's say a, then use the equal to operator. That means you want to assign something to that. So let's say age is 100. Okay, so now whenever I run, what happens is you can really see how this a is being stored, this 100. Right now a is showing 0 in the tooltip box. You can see clearly in the year also it's showing a equal to 0 because it is not crossed that line. Once I cross that line, it will show now a is storing a number called 100, which is of integer data type. Integer data type. It is trying to store the number which is of a. Now I want to see on a message box. Let's see in the message box. MSG box, I can simply, instead of writing my own prompt here, what I want to do is I want to use a here. But in the beginning, I told you every string should be always given in double quotes. Let's see what happens if I use a in double quotes. I want to see the error, what kind of error I'm going to get or what I'm going to get here. When I'm running this slowly, I understood a is 0. When I'm running this, a is 100. When I'm running this, I'm getting a, because always remember, whenever you're trying to use double quotes for any text information or the string information, it will print as it is. That is the thumb rule. But here I don't want to print a as is. I want to print what is a is storing. So that means I'm not supposed to use double quotes here. Please do remember, whenever you are referring your variables, we are not supposed to enclose in double quotes. That is wrong. What happens if I use double quotes? We have seen practically it is printing a, but it is not printing what a is storing at currently. So let me remove. When I'm running this, it is showing me a is 100. Excellent. Now let me say 200 is my age. When I'm running it, it's showing 200. Very good. Let me say 255. Will it work? It's still showing. Very good. That means that is the size of your data type. Let me say 256. When I'm running is showing, it is telling me an error. Boss, this is not the way to store the information. It is telling me overflow. That means you have a glass in which you can fill water only to that size, not to the extent. If you try to store more water into a glass which is not of that capacity, what will happen is it will overflow. That is what happening here. There is a container of a byte data type which can store only 255 characters only. Beyond that, it doesn't have the capacity, but you are trying to put some number which is more than that number, then obviously you are going to get overflow. That is what I'm getting here. Now you can see I'm getting overflow message. Debug, in the sense it will tell you where is the error. It is telling you this is the error. We'll try to understand more about these errors, but currently I'm just trying to tell you, if you say debug, it will directly take you to the error place by highlighting that particular line. That's the beauty of identifying the errors in your VBA editor. Let me show you what happens if I say end. Okay, let me stop this macro. Stop in the sense reset. We can reset in the sense you want to come out of this one. Once I say reset, it will come out of that line. Now, when I run this again, when I run this again, this time I don't want to click on debug. I want to say end. End in the sense it will not show you the error. It will come and sit back to the same place. That's it. Wherever the cursor was there, it will come back and sit back to the same place, but it will not show where is the error. But always it is advisable to use the debug option. Debug is nothing but finding out the errors, and VBA editor itself highlights the error where exactly the error is. It is telling you this is the place where you have the error. Now this is a clear demonstration which is telling you that byte can store only this. Byte can store only this, not more than that. Okay. All right, let me see the next example, that is integer data type. The word itself is indicating integer means we already know the number can be pronounced as in the technical word as integer. So let me say sub integer example. Okay, so what is the size? I don't remember. Let me take the help from here, the comments which I've written here. This is my size of integer data type. So let me declare dim b as integer. You can give any name, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm just giving as b, c, d, e, doesn't matter here. So first we need to assign some value to it. Okay, how to assign? Either you can assign the information from your Excel. Okay, you know how to assign a value from the Excel because you have seen, right? So let me say equal to range of a1 dot value. This time I'm not giving a value. I want to give the value from the Excel. That means whatever the user is entering the information in the Excel sheet that I want to be, let me go to my Excel. In the A1 cell, let's give as 100 as a number. So that means I'm capturing this 100 through the help of a variable called B. Now, whatever the information is there in the A1 cell, that is going to be stored in the B. Let me see without a message buffer now. Uh, Now B is storing 100. Why? How do I know? Because you have written 100 in the A1 cell. Let me say, let me say 1000 here or 10,000. When I'm running this, now it is telling me you're in the A1 cell, we have a, a value called 10,000. So this is how you take the information from the end user or from the Excel. We'll see different ways, but this is one way. This is one more way. The one which you have seen already, that is assigning a number, static number to your value. But in real world, you'll never use the static numbers. I asked your age, you said some 25. Somebody's age is not same, right? So the ages keep changing as per the customer, as per the account number is not same, employee ID is not same. So you cannot give a static values like this. So being I'm just learning how to assign, I've used a static number, but however, this is the best way of using, that is this option. That is, you are assigning a value which is stored in the Excel. For example, you asked uh, what is your account number? So I said my account number is 12345. So based on that account number, you are going to perform certain job. Now you have taken the account number. If this account number existing, you want to perform certain job. So that is the condition structures which you are going to see in the upcoming topic. But here we are just trying to understand how this integer is used. So let's see in the message box, as usual, what is B? Let's see. When I'm running this, it is telling me your B is 12345. Okay, very good. Let me change 32,768 some number, 65 maybe, which is lowest to its size. Let me close this so that you can have more room to see. It's still working, right? So let me go for a bigger version, uh, 70, which is a bigger number. Why it's a bigger number? Because it doesn't have that capacity actually, but I want to see whether it works or not. Oh, it's overflow. That means I cannot go beyond the number which is of 32,768. That's a practically it's proven now. That means it doesn't have the capacity. So always ensure that whatever the account number, whatever the product ID, whatever the number related information, when you expect to be stored, which is not going beyond this number, try to use this data type. Otherwise, go for the other data type, which you are going to discuss a little bit later. But at this moment, what is my capacity? My capacity is only 32,000. So try to use such size of data information to be stored in these variables. So whenever I want to store some age related information, I always use a byte because it really doesn't make any sense you are asking a age from the user, which is of only 2-digit information, which is not going to be beyond 100, and you are trying to waste your system resources by assigning a data type called integer, because integer is very big when you compare with the byte data type. Integer can store up to from negative to positive, that is 32,768. So it's a very big. So age is not the right uh, value to be captured by using this data type. I would like to go for byte because it is up to 255. So that means I'm using very less memory to take the information from the user so that now my macro can work faster and faster. So that is the integer example. Resume recording. All right, so the next one is after seeing the integer example, I could understand sometimes when the number is crossing 255, the better option would be integer. But do you have any other option where I can, if my information is going beyond 32,768, is there any other data type is available? Let's see in a couple of minutes. But before that, there's very important thing to be covered, that is a string data type. So let's see sub string example. That's a simple uh, macro name. So here I'm declaring a variable called dim c as a string. Okay, I declared a variable called c equal to I said Monty. I closed msg box as c. So that means what? String is a data type which can store only string related information. I repeat, never try to close your variable by double quotes. By closing double quotes, you mean to say that so whenever you're trying to store some information in a variable, never try to use the double quotes. By using the double quotes, what happens is you are trying to close that variable without showing up what is the actual result. So never use the double quotes here. Double quotes use only with the string. Okay, to print as is. So I'm trying to use this. Now it's fine. Now let me see, out of curiosity, I want to see if 123 is can be stored in the string data type. Now let me run this. Oh, it's working. So that means string can also take a number data type information. So let me use a string for only string, but how much size you can go for? Let me use a very lengthy one. Now I'm trying to see what C can store, it can store. So that means string can store a much data whenever you require. That means you can, what kind of information available for the string? What kind of information can be stored in the string? Uh, Most of the time customer name, most of the time company name, most of the time the comment section probably, which is a very lengthy information which you can store in the form of a string information. So always go for a customer name. Okay, so that's how you can use a string object, a string data type for any variable declared to store only text information. That is the string example, best example. The next one is, let's see what is the next one store for. Let's see what is this single data type. This is something really interesting because when you are working for a finance, you need to act differently. When you're working in a normal environment where you doesn't require to be shown the number in decimals. Let's see how it works. So before that, let me do some investigation on the integer. Does it really works if I use, let's say 100.75 something I used, which is float value, right? We have a 2 decimals there. How the integer works here? Let me stop this macro because I'm not interested to run the string. I'm interested to run integer. When I'm running this, it is trying to show me 101, but that's not the number what I'm expecting. I'm expecting it should be showing as 100.75. The 2 decimals is really, really important for my reporting. And however, the integer is not a good data type to show you along with the decimals. It will always round figure the amount irrespective of the number of decimals it has. Whether it has a 10 decimals, 2 decimals, it always round figure. As we know, if it is less than, if it is a less than 5, let's say 45, what happens? It will show 100 or 101. Let's see, it is an integer data type. Now it is showing as 100 because it's not able to round figure. After the dot, after your primary number dot, if you have more than 5 as the starting number, it will round figure as a 1. So we have seen practically if it is 100.5 something, it will show as 101, else it will show as 100. So if you're working in a finance and you want to be shown your sales figure or your transaction, your payment information, whatever the information you want to show, including the decimals, integer is not the right example, not right data type to be used. So let me go for the next one. Uh, will this help me to see if this single works? Sub single example. Okay, this is what the size we have. Excellent. So let me say dim D as single. So what does this single mean? D equal to range of A1. A1 is your reference cell in which you have the data. I'm not giving static information anymore because that will not work in real world. It always need to be taken from the Excel front end, that is your Excel cell. If you have the information in the B1, try to mention as a B1 here. Now I want to see in the message box what happens. Let's see, message box D. Okay, D is a variable which is storing the information. Let me slowly, when you're practicing in initial stage, try to see what actually it is storing. That's a good practice to see what D is storing. Okay, 100.45. Will I get 100.45 or like the integer, it will display only 100? Let's see. So it's showing as 100.45, which is very good. That is what I want because I'm working in a finance. I want to show the numbers the way it is coming, and always I want to show in a 2 decimals. Let me add some more decimals here. How it reacts, I want to see. There's a huge number here. It's only 100, but we have a long decimals here. I want to see how it really reflects on your message box. So when I see here, it can show up to like 4 decimals, 100.45555. That means it's not showing the complete information. So in real world scenario, we'll never try to show all the decimals. Either you try to round figure to 2 decimals or 3 decimals. Maybe it depends upon the requirement. Let's go for the double one. Will it help me to show the complete information? Sub double example. Okay, when I'm saying double, let me also see the size so that I can really understand how it works. Okay, this is a double example. So let me say D, dim E as double now this time. Okay, so E equal to, again, I want to go for range A1, or you can give it the static value, but start practicing this way, which will allow you to understand, because upcoming examples, whatever the examples you are going to take, always refer information from the Excel, not a static number anymore. So I want to see in the message box how it looks like. Is it really different from a single integer byte? Let's see. Okay, 100.455. I don't know how many decimals are there. It is trying to get the whole information. So that's the best advantage of using the double. But however, we'll never use this kind of information on a reporting. Either we'll try to round figure to 2 decimals or 3 decimals, most probably depending upon the region requirement or reporting standards. So, however, we have this option anytime if you feel like we need to show the complete raw information the way it is coming from the system you want to display, then go for this one. That is a double. So after using the double, so I don't want to show how the long is really long. Actually, it's very long. Long is more than your double, more than your single, more than your byte, more than your integer. So long is really long. I always use long because when I'm not sure if my data size is beyond 255 characters, or it is beyond 65,000 characters, it is beyond this 2 million or 100 million, then I'm not sure. Always I use a long data type. The next one is variant data type. As I said, it is very good to use, at the same time very dangerous, because variant data type stores lot of information. I mean, it is a very big space. It has a very big space. You can simply compare your very big auditorium with 1000 capacity people and an auditorium which is of just 10 people capacity. So if you can just compare this 10 to 1000 is to ratio, 1000 ratio is a very big, right? So variant is a big data type which can store lot of information. So never use this data type, only when it is required, because it consumes lot of memory from your system. Let's say an example here, sub uh, variant example. So if I say dim f as variant, you can see you are getting, there's no need to write, you are getting straight away. F equal to, I said, uh, my name is Monty, just like that for fun. Let me say message box F. I want to see in the form of message box. When I'm running this, I'm able to see. Okay, is that only limited to this one? Can I use the special characters here? Numbers, can I use all the special characters here? Because it's a variant type and its heart is really big. I mean, its space is really big. Can I still show that? Yeah. So that means variant data type is such a huge space which can store any information, and there is as long as your memory is supporting, it can store a lot of information. So never go for this one, because for example, you are storing employee ID employee ID which is of a 10 digits. Why do you want to waste the resource of using variant data type, which takes a lot of space on your system? So these are the different models we have seen practically how these variables can be utilized. However, when we start working on conditional structures, when you start working on the variable loops, and when you are working with Outlook tomorrow, when you're doing an automation with Outlook or various example, anything automation when you're doing without using variables, you cannot do anything. So this is an important topic for any programming language. It works like a heart of these programming languages. Variables are very important. It's a piece of information which is storing. It is also telling you politely how much size you can store. Instead of using the entire memory of your system, try to utilize how much you want. You take only how much you want. Don't take over limit, because it will slow your performance of your macro. Okay. So to understand the concept which I'm going to talk about now, that is the scope of variable. Scope in the sense, what is the life of this variable? I keep talking about variable is a container, stores the information, but how long it will store the information? How long it will remember? And does it still remember if I close the Excel workbook? That's a question which is bothering me. Whenever you're closing the Excel workbook, the variable which is stored information will definitely die. It will not have life anymore. That is one thing for sure. When you're closing the Excel workbook, that means the memory which as allocated, for example, A is storing 100 as a number. So when you close your Excel workbook, that 100 is erased from the memory. It is completely deleted, so that that same memory can be utilized for something else when you are working on any other application. So that means the life is come to an end when you are trying to close your Excel workbook. Ideally, that's how it should be. So there's no debate on this. Nobody will say why it will die. Yes, it has to die, because once the Excel workbook is closed, your job is done. You are not using that application anymore. When you open again, it will, when you're running the macro again, it will start storing that information what you are giving as a feed. So let's try to understand the scope of variable here. Scope of variables. Scope here, what I mean is the life. How much life of any variable would be, till where it can be stored. So as you have said, let me say example one. Okay. The first one is local variable. Local variable, which is, let me close this. Yeah. Local variable, which is within macro. So what is within macro? This is one macro, right? So I started with sub and end sub. So that means between these two lines, what of the stuff I'm writing, that is considered to be a one single macro. If I have one more sub example underscore two, this is altogether a different macro. There is no relation as of now. There could be a relation tomorrow, but at this moment, I have no relation between another macro, which is saying one is a example one is saying example two. So what is a local variable in the sense, when you declare a variable, dim, let's say var as variable, let's assume, or let's say byte or anything, doesn't matter. We are just trying to see the scope. Now I said var equal to, var is nothing but a variable name. Okay, just like I've taken, instead of taking ABCD equal to, I said 100. Now I want to see message box, what is var stands for. Now when I'm running this, I could see var is storing 100 and showing me message box as 100. So fantastic, I know this. So what is the life here is, practically if somebody asks you what is the life of a variable, how long it can store the information, when it close the Excel workbook, as usual we know that it's died dead. But now I want to understand, when this showing as var as 100, when I'm coming out of this procedure or this macro, the variable has already lost its information. That means variable already forgot what was stored in a variable. That means this variable is called as a local variable. Local, which is between the sub and end sub. The variable will be awake, will start taking the information from you. It will show you as a result, but once you are out of that macro, the variable will die. That means it will not remember anything. It will have a shorter memory because it will work only as long as you are within that macro. Let me show you practically. If I go into the second macro and say message box var, if you observe here, I'm not declared any variable here. Okay, I have not told what is a var, but I want to see if this var is still passing that information to the next macro. I'm running this 100 I got. When I'm running the second macro, it is telling me blank. That means this var, whatever it is storing as 100 or 1000, it is really forgot when it came to the second macro. It is not still remembering what is 100. So that is what you call as a local variable, which is declared within your sub and end sub. That is your local variable. Let me put it here. Okay, so the next one is, we have a local variable, then we have a, that means it will work only within that procedure. So let me write here so that your procedure, okay, your procedure only. That means local to your procedure only. That is what it means. The next one is, you can also say once you, let me give the exact meaning here. Once you exit macro, okay, once you exit this macro, what will happen is, it, this info from variable will be, it's going out of my monitor. Okay, once you exit this macro, this information from variable will be erased. Who is erasing? Nobody is erasing, because this is a local variable. Once it comes out of this macro, it will forget automatically. So that's about the local variable. Let me give this as a local so that you can understand clearly. Local underscore variable underscore 1 as an example. Now, the question is, sometimes you want to declare a variable, but you want to consume throughout your module. What is a module again? I'm sitting in the module 1. That means whatever the variable I declare in this module, I want to start using that variable throughout the module without fail. That means if I want to use this variable again, I need to declare var equal to 100. Before that, I need to say dim var as byte or something, because I'm repeating my task here. If you observe, in the first local variable, I declared already var. Here, if I want to consume this var, again, I'm declaring a variable. So it should not be like that. It should be something like, even if I'm not declaring, my var should show me that 100 figure, which is failing at this moment, because it is a local to that variable. Now, let me see how to make this variable, which can be utilized throughout your module, throughout in the module, in the sense, what I will do is simply, I will remove, okay, let me go with the next example, sub module level variable. That means any variable which you are using, that should be throughout your macros, So for that, what I'll do is a simple concept. Instead of declaring a variable within the sub and end sub, instead I'll go to the first line of my module at the top. I'll say dim my new as byte. So what does it mean is, I'm declaring a variable for the first time. I keep saying whatever the information you want to write, whatever the code you want to write, always should be between sub and end sub. This is the first time I'm going out of my macro. I'm writing some text and it is still accepting, because it is a variable which you are declaring at the starting of your module. That means this variable now can store information which can be utilized by any macro. Let's see if that is true. Now here I set my new, which I declared at the top, which is a simply variable name. My new equal to, I said something called, let's say 100. Okay. Now I want to say a message box, my new. Is it available? Yes, it's showing as a property, but it's a variable here. Now, the thing is, when I'm running this, will it work? Because in this, there is no variable declared. If you observe closely, the variable is declared at the top. Let me close this. Okay. The variable is declared at the top, but not in the local. Local in the sense, this is what the example you have seen. This is a variable which you are declared at the top, which is called as a module level. When I'm running this, I'm getting the answer as 100. So let me give 1000 because we want to see the difference. Okay, it's showing 1000. It can't be because it's a byte data type, right? So let me say 200, just showing a different number. Okay, 200, it's working. Just like your local variable, it's working, nothing new. So what is the special here? Let me see. Sub, I want to go for another example. I want to see really it's working or not. Okay, message box, my new. This time I'm not declared again. I want to see whether it's working or not. I ran it, 200 I'm getting. I'm going to the another procedure where there is no relation of that variable declaration, but I'm running. I can see that 200 is still alive. It is not dead. The variable, the number which is stored in the variable that is called my new or whatever, the name which you have given, is still stored that information. In case of a local variable, the variable is died just after when you came out of the procedure. But in case of a module level variables are still alive because whenever you're running, for example, I have one more macro where I want to still make use of this message box, my new. Okay, let me run from the starting again. I'm running this, still alive because it's working like a local, which is good. Still alive, it's working like a module, is still alive. So write 1000 macros and this variable is still having that memory and telling your friend, boss, this is a number what you stored in my memory, so I'm still showing up. That means this type of a variable which is declared at the top with proper data type, whatever the data type might be, it's a byte, integer, we have some 5 6 we have seen. Whatever the data type you are declaring, it should be declared at the top of your module. So this is local. Let me write here. This is local variable. This is local, and let me write as a module level variables. So this variable works as local as well as module level. Now I cannot differentiate which is best here because sometimes I need a variable which can work within that procedure, and even if it is dying, it's fine for me because my purpose is solved. But in sometimes I want a variable, for example, account number. Okay, you're taking information from the customer as an account number, and there is a macro which is written which will try to get the balance of a customer. So that variable you want to be utilized in one macro and at the same time other macro, and 100 macros you want to use the same account number to complete this transaction. So obviously I need to go for a module level variable. So module level variable is very, very important. Again, I don't want to comment which is important. It depends upon the requirement. Again, local is also good, module level is also good. So this dim, you can also, being it's a local variable, local to this module, you can also use dim. Otherwise you can use, let me write in the second line, you can still use as a private module. Okay, you can use this way or this way, doesn't matter. Some people use as a private, my new as a byte. Okay, some people use dim, doesn't matter because it's a private to this module only. That means if I'm running this, will it work? Let's see. It's working as a 200, and this is working as a 200. This is working as a 200. That means it's still working whether I'm using a private or simply dim. But in case of a local variable, let's see what is the problem I'm facing. I'm still have a problem with the local variables. I declared var. and var is showing 100, which is good. But once it comes out of this ends up, the variable has already lost its information because this is what it is proved. That means it's already forgot what is stored in me. It's already forgot because that's a local variable. Local and module level, or you can call it as a private module. Okay. And one important question which I have is, if I'm changing my module, that means I'm in the module 2 now, will that private module which I declared in the previous one, will it work? Okay. uh, let's say another module, I'm in sitting in another module. I want to use message box as one is var, which you declared within your local, right? That's a local variable which you declared in the other module. This is my new, what is that? My new, okay, my new as my new. This is module. So let me say this is a module level variable. Okay. Now when I'm running, I want to see. I'm out of curiosity. I want to see whether this var, which was storing earlier 100, my new, which was storing 200, which will work in this place. No, it's not working. Will it work? No. So that means it's clearly proven. We have seen in action. Local variable is local to the that procedure or macro, and the module level declaration, what you have done is local to that module only. It will not extend its capacity or help, okay, to other modules. It will never try to help other modules because that is local, that is module level only. Now I want to understand, is there any such scope where I can utilize that variable throughout my modules, throughout my this workbook? Let's see if that case is available. So for that, let me go back to my first one. Here, instead of declaring as private, this time I want to say public. Let's see what is the difference I'll found by using this. Public, okay, public, this is my new variable one. Okay, this is, let me give as pub one. This is PR1, so that we can understand what is the difference here. So this is my, it's not my new anyway. This is private PA1. That's my PRI, sorry. This is a PRI. So yeah, it's correct. PRI, this PRI. So what I did is I just given the proper name so that you can really differentiate. Now, this is a pub1, okay, which I declared somewhere here. Let's declare anywhere. Let's say public variable example. Here I said uh, dim. Why dim again? Because we already declared at the top. There's no need to. So I need to simply use pub equal to something 100. Okay, not 100. Let's say some 50, because already we have seen the 100 and 200, and it's a byte data type moreover. So I'm running now. After this, I need to use a message box to see whether it is pub1 is giving information or not. So when I'm running this, pub1 is showing as a local variable, as well as, will it show in another, that is what my curiosity, will it work? Now this is working here, yes. Now when I go to the second one, is it working? Yes. But I want to see if I go to another module, will it work or not? That means MSG box pub1. Okay, so this is not my new, it is PRI1. Okay, so now I have a different modules. Now let's try to experiment how it works. I'll come from the beginning to have the flavor of local, at the same time private, at the same time public. So the first one here being the var is a local variable. I'm running it. It's working superb. Now let me go to the second example, which is a local variable. I want to experiment whether it can survive till the next level of example, that is macro. No, it's already forgot. That means local variable cannot remember anything. Let me go for the second one, that is module level one. Module is able to remember 200. it is able to remember 200 because it's still module level, it's still working. Now let me go for the public variable. Public variable is able to remember as a local. It's working like a module level also. Now my interest is to see if I'm going to another module, will it will still show that number or not. Where already lost its memory, private is also lost its memory, pub is still showing 50. Wonderful. That means local variable works within that procedure, private variable works within that module, public variable work anywhere in the module. That means whether you are in the same module, whether you are in the different module, doesn't matter, but it works within that workbook, not with the other workbooks. It doesn't require we need to have a variables which works from one workbook to another workbook. It's not really required. We always wanted a variables which can work within different modules. So this is a best example of how to use variables of public and private modules. So let me write here variables example 2 underscore 2. This is what we have seen as a 1, and this is what we have seen as a 3. All right. So these are the different examples what you have seen. The scope of variables, very, very important topic. Whenever you go for the interview, especially when I am taking the interview, I'll definitely want to ask what are the scope of variables and which variable behaves in what way. How effective is private variable? How effective is global variable? How effective is local variable? So you are trying to understand here the lifespan of each variable, how long it can remember.